Welcome to another episode of World of Faceting Machines. Today we're with London's oldest lapidary company, Chas Matthews. The cutting company has been open since 1894, and its last generation cutters, John and Peter, still use machines and techniques that go all the way back to 1827. Some of the world's finest cashmere sapphires and Colombian emeralds have been cut on these machines over the years, and the company continues to cut the finest materials.
Cutting diamonds is a science and cutting colour stones is an art.
The shop organizes the cutting process into two stations, the cutting table and the polishing table. Peter Rome is the cutter, and he walks us through how the machine works.
Well, that's a mangle wheel. I don't know what that is. That gives you a gearing, so so you can adjust the height of it. And this also you can adjust the height on the back. Unscrew this with a screw that holds the pulley in, and then you just put it on, tie a string around it with a bit of cloth, so it makes it stiff.
So maybe
I don't tend to. Sometimes if I have to go low, I push it right down and get right low.
both the cutting and the polishing benches use thick copper laps that have lasted their entire careers. On the cutting side, Peter uses 400 grit natural diamond powder and hand cranks the lap to give him total control over the speed. He occasionally moistens the lap with water on a paintbrush. In his right hand, he holds the dop, angled in this particularly British style of Gimp Peg head. This machine design was first mentioned in 1827 in British mineralogist John Maugh's famous book, Familiar Lessons in Mineralogy and Gemology. He explains to us that, whilst the left hand is employed turning, the right hand applies the stone to the surface of the mill, which is charged with emery and kept constant wet by brush. In order to cut facets, it is necessary to have a cone of wood about 8 inches high placed perpendicularly on an iron pin. This is called a Gimp Peg. It has 4 or 5 heights of holes. The Gimp Peg head can be adjusted up and down on the rod to micro-adjust the angle of the dop in order to achieve perfect meet points. Moving on to the polishing side, we have John Taylor, who mainly uses a copper lap, though he also has a tin lap with iron oxide for softer stones. Once upon a time, the polishing lap would have also been hand cranked, but was converted to a variable speed motor before John and Peter started their apprenticeships in the 1960s. John uses 1/2 to 3 microns and sometimes 1/4 to 1 micron diamond powder mixed with 3-in-1 oil for his polishing. The dops they use are made of lignum vitae or rosewood, and most of them have been part of the company longer than Peter and John have. Their dopping technique, which they call sticking up the stone, is similar to many others. They use brown German-made high-heat wax. They soften it over an alcohol lamp and then apply it to the dop, which they rub over a metal sheet to shape. One interesting thing is how they dop the stone in order to cut and polish the table. They heat up the wax and then push the stone to a 45-degree angle, and then once the table is finished, they stick it back up straight and continue on. If they need to cut cabochons, they use a wooden wheel and diamond powder for polishing.
0.5 micron on that.
They also have another soft wheel that they use with tin oxide, which they call
Putty powder.
These days, the studio almost exclusively does recuts for London and European customers. When I first saw their work, I noticed a particularly British style of proportioning to their stones.
We always had this argument with the continental boys. They like big tables.
Okay.
We don't.
You mean like French and Dutch?
And these look like French orientated stones originally, because they've got big tables for the size of the stone.
Okay.
We would always make them smaller.
Besides Chas Matthews, there's one other studio in England that has a master cutter who has been professionally trained in the old British techniques. These two studios are an incredible way to look back into the last 300 years of gem cutting and technology in London. The hand crank table that Peter uses to cut was built in the 1940s, but it seems that only one lapidary mill from the 1800s has survived the test of time and lies hidden in a storeroom in Calk Abbey near Derby. The machine looks exactly like its depiction in the 1850 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, and like Peter and John, it's an incredible time capsule for studying ancient gem cutting techniques. Our exploration of British faceting history will continue in the next episode, where we will observe the British technique for dressing the cutting and polishing laps. For now, thanks for watching and see you next time on World of Faceting Machines.